I typically am. I genuinely am, because I think smart regulation could certainly bring legitimacy to the space. Now, I think gold is central to that. I've been saying this for a very long time. But at the same time, it's very hard to ignore the reality of how these policies are usually unfolding. Okay, there's the headline. There's the minutia that you see what we just watched right there. Yeah, you can get picks. You can cherry pick what you like, but what's actually being engineered underneath the surface? Now, regulation so far, as history shows us, has never been about protection. It's about controlling the structure of how to protect. So when governments want to regulate markets, it's really about protecting retail. It's about redefining and who's going to pretty much survive. Now, here's the good side of this. This is going to help decide which technologies are actually allowed to be plugged into the financial system and which ones are essentially going to be cut off. So when we look at the Clarity Act, I think the broader stablecoin and digital asset legislation played some role in it, but I don't think we should view them as, you know, something to protect us, right? It's all about drawing the blueprint for the next system. And when you start to look at the stablecoin bill, for instance, it was really designed to support the dollar, okay? I looked into the stablecoin bill, the Genius Act. On the surface, it sounded positive. It had oversight, transparency, all that stuff. And when you look underneath of it, it had the same frameworks for a CBDC, right?
Just debt transfer. That's all they're doing.
The Clarity Act, though, the good news is it's going to separate the securities from the true utility tokens, and that's going to change everything, because once regulators draw that line, speculation dies, the narratives die, and in my opinion, most crypto projects today, they're not going to exist by that point.
Well, you've got the kind of the cornerstones of Rails concepts out there, which are the utility products out there. Obviously, XRP is, I would say, the 800-pound gorilla. HBAR, maybe XLM with Stellar, what they are doing, maybe a handful of others. And it's very possible we could see a chain that come. I mean, if you look at Canton and what they've been able to do in a short time, that
messaging layers.
Yes. That's interesting to me, because it starts to open up this whole utility component, which even the DATs have kind of gone this direction with the digital asset treasuries. Now, you get away from DATs who are just trying to lock and hold against an MNAV, buy an asset, hold it, and hope it goes up. That's your business model, like what Saylor's doing with Strategy. I know he's putting a lot. I know he's putting a lot of, fancy instruments on those to pay dividends. I get that, guys, so you can leave the comments out. But the real point is he's owning Bitcoin, hoping that it will go up.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite crypto news related channel. And you read that headline correct. Starting today, over 300 financial institutions and banks can now leverage the XRP ledger. And I'm going to dive right into that at the beginning of today's episode, as we just saw the permission DEX go live on the XRPL. Now, officially, this doesn't officially launch until 4 p.m. today. So we got about 4 more hours until this goes live. But Monica Long summed this up perfectly. 2026 is the year where XRP sees institutional adoption at scale. And that's what I'm really betting on with amendments like these. Going forward, institutions, banks, large companies have everything they need in order to operate on the XRP ledger. And that's what I'm going to be breaking down starting off at the beginning of today's episode. We already have over 840 live listeners here joining us. If you enjoyed this content, you're excited about this episode, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. And of course, we got Johnny Krypto joining us later on in the show. So be sure to stick around for some of that exciting content. Now, I did just want to quickly address what he had just referenced in that initial clip, which is that the Clarity Act is going to decide which of these ecosystems survives and which of these ecosystems dies. And I think the unfortunate truth here is that a lot of crypto projects that people have a lot of certainty on, they may end up going to zero. But the positive aspect of this, projects like HBAR, Ondo, Canton, the XRP ledger, these ecosystems that are robust and legitimate, built with real businesses, we are going to see institutional adoption at scale. And that starts right here, right now in 2026. So we're going to start breaking that down. I've also got some big news in regards to RLUSD. RLUSD officially breaks into the top 50. This is a massive update because, again, Brad Garlinghouse predicted several $1 billion. We're eventually going to see this asset climb into the top 10. But if you're just showing up for today, the big news that we're going to be diving into, the XRPL activates the members-only DEX for Wall Street. But what does this mean? The XRP ledger enabled its XLS81 permission DEX, allowing only approved participants to trade on chain. This is designed for regulated institutions to require strict access controls to KYC and AML compliance. Very simple way to think about this. Now, the biggest players in the world will know exactly how to operate on the XRP ledger. They're going to know who they're trading with. They're going to know who's providing liquidity. They're going to know the smart contracts and the use cases that they can leverage in their real world businesses. And that doesn't start tomorrow. It didn't start yesterday. It kicks off right here, right now, today in 2026. So if you're excited about that, guys, smash the like button. The goal for today, can we pass 700 likes? Now, I just want to make a very brief announcement at the beginning of the episode as well. I am going to be traveling to Denver tonight. Anybody who's in ETH Denver or attending, I'm going to be going to the event hosted by Ray Fuentes and I think Digital Ascension Group with Jake. He's going to be speaking at that event as well. So if you're going there, be sure to approach me. Be sure to come and say hi. I am looking forward to meeting whoever I can, whoever's out there and attending the event. I'm always excited to meet the people who watch this program and enjoy the show. But with that being said, we're going to listen to David Schwartz explain why this is so important. And the title of today's show is 300 banks can now use the XRP ledger. That's not hyperbole. That is a legitimate fact. And here's the example that I want to kick off today's episode with. Ripple has 300 plus banking partnerships, but after 13 years, shouldn't there be billions in daily volume on the XRP ledger? And this is what David responded with. I think there's a number of reasons why institutions historically preferred to use digital assets off-chain rather than on-chain. We're really close to changing that because institutions are starting to see the benefits of moving on-chain, but I agree it's been very slow. Even Ripple can't use the XRP ledger DEX for payments yet because we can't be sure a terrorist won't provide the liquidity for the payments. Features like permission domains, which went live 2 weeks ago, and now the permission DEX, which goes live today, will address this. And that's the perfect segue into this explanation here out of David Schwartz. Here's what David had to say about banks now leveraging XRP.
It's going to be very significant. You know, a thorn in my side and a thorn in the side of Ripple for a long time has been the fact that we can't use the XRP ledger DEX for our own payments products. Like this just, I want to rip my hair out. So like it's obvious that we would do that. And it's frustrating that endlessly frustrating that we can't. And the primary obstacle is that Ripple is a regulated institution. Right. And if our trade like passes through a terrorist or somebody who's sanctioned by the United States, it doesn't matter whether we knew or could have known, or basically if there's a chance that that can happen, we just can't do it.
Right.
And so we have not been able to use the DEX. And it's just, And so permission domains will enable a domain in which you have to prove you're not a terrorist to get into that domain. And so that will mean that like lots of ordinary people, I made the joke at my other presentation, I said, you know, all of us could get into that. Probably not that guy in the second row. Yeah, that joke killed earlier. But I mean, the idea is that these will not be just institutions to institutions. Why put that on the XRP ledger, right? That should be on a private ledger. But the idea is that ordinary people will be in these permission domains. They'll be able to provide liquidity. They'll be able to consume liquidity. They'll be able to arbitrage between inside and outside the domain. And finally, enterprises that want to use the DEX to settle payments and move assets and provide liquidity on the DEX will be able to do so. So I think it's going to be very significant as part of the sort of wave of institutional adoption.
And I'm going to play the end of this video, guys, but I wanted to pause there because David addressed something really important, which is who is this amendment built for, right? Why is this important for XRP investors? Because going forward, now Ripple, the company itself, will be able to leverage the XRP ledger DEX for routing payments in their Ripple payment product. This means that people who are tapping into Ripple payments and leveraging the Ethereum or the stablecoin portion of this can now leverage the XRP ledger in the exact same way. With the permission DEX and the permission domains officially going live, they can create controlled liquidity pools where only verified partners are allowed to trade. This means that Ripple could start routing cross-border payments directly on-chain using XRP as the bridge currency. So going forward, Ripple will be able to onboard all of their cross-border payments directly into the XRP ledger. And as I stated at the beginning of the episode, Ripple has over 300 partners, institutional partners worldwide. Once they start using it, many, if not all of those partners could quickly follow suit. And the direct impact here is massive demand coming into the XRP ledger, as well as an increase in global volume. But that's not where it ends. You got to think about who Ripple's partnered with and why they would want to leverage the XRP ledger. Well, the existing banking partnerships, they're not just in the United States. So we're not just focused on Clarity. We've got banking partnerships in Asia, Europe, Latin America, the Middle East, Japan, India, Brazil, all partnered with Ripple. And the specific names, SBI Holdings, Standard Chartered, Santander, American Express, PNC, these are some of the largest global players on planet Earth. And these partners are already using Ripple's technology for cross-border payments, but the permission DEX removes the last hurdle for on-chain settlement directly on the XRP ledger. You correlate this with the RLUSD stablecoin, which, like I said, just climbed into the top 50 tokens yesterday. This is likely going to be a major play for the banking institutions who can trade the RLUSD trading pairs in a permissional manner on the XRP ledger. So all of this new volume, all of this new liquidity is coming into XRP, and thousands of people out there are wondering, when are we going to begin to see some price momentum? Well, that's what I'd like to break down during the next portion of the episode, because what's going to drive price here is demand and speculation. In the short term, we need to keep an eye on partnerships, right? Does Ripple launch a pilot program here? Do they make some big announcements with some big companies? That could happen in the next 1 to 2 months, according to the AI analysis that I leveraged to kind of provide this update. When you think about the extension here, 12 months, 18 months out, you could see Ripple settling billions on the XRP ledger via the permission DEX alone. And that's when XRP could see serious, sustained growth from actual usage, which is the demand for the real token, the burning of XRP, and then institutions locking that XRP so that they're not buying this asset and dumping it 12 months later. They're buying this asset and using it for years to come. So that's a massive update, guys. I wanted to provide that right at the beginning of today's episode, and we can correlate this update with the passing of the Clarity Act. And this is an update that we just got 3 or 4 days ago at this point, where the White House executive and the crypto advisor lays out the timeline for the Clarity Act. Here it is.
So the status right now, the House passed the Clarity Act, their version of it last year, over to the House in July, I believe. And the Senate has taken it up and made its own changes to it and is fashioning their own version. We were able to pass half of the bill out of the Ag Committee that handles the CFTC portions. And now we're just stuck in the Banking Committee for the SEC portions, the securities portions of that bill. So there was a markup that was scheduled on, I believe, January 18th that unfortunately got pulled down, postponed, but we're working hard to address the issues that were raised that led to the postponement of that markup and hopefully get that back on the books soon. And then once we pass that out of the Banking Committee, the 2 pieces of the legislation will need to be reconciled before a final vote on the floor. So more work to be done, but we're a step closer with the passage of the ag portion of this a couple weeks ago.
So make no mistake about it, guys. Ripple has now set up everything necessary for institutions to start using XRP. And now the United States government is on the precipice of passing the Clarity Act, which would give definitive rules and guidelines about which of these assets are commodities, which are securities, and how can people start leveraging this technology. But I want to hear from you guys. One's in chat if you are excited about the idea that the permission DEX is live and 300 banks can now use XRP. 2's in chat if you think, I'm not excited, I'm waiting for price action, and until we see some serious momentum, I'm not going to be too excited about anything happening with XRP. Now, I find myself in that first category, but I do love to hear from you guys and incorporate that into the show as well. We did already pass 300 likes on today's episode. If you're enjoying this content, smash that like button. The goal for today, can we pass 700 likes during the show? We're going to be breaking down this chart later on in the episode when Johnny Krypto joins us. Where are we in the market cycle, and how can our users apply where we are today to have success in the crypto market? Well, I wanted to start off with some of the max fear that is circulating the market today. And this is a video from Kevin O'Leary, got nearly 500,000 views in the last 2 days. Kevin O'Leary says that institutions do not want to own more than 3% of Bitcoin in their portfolios because of the risk of quantum computing. Here it is.
How do you think about Bitcoin fundamentally, technically, especially after a little bit of this washout we've seen?
Well, Bitcoin has had a major correction yet again, down 50%. This is not the first time this has occurred. Something else has occurred, though, underneath it that is quite a problem for the crypto market to resolve. Last October, October 20th was the day when this stuff really melted, but not just Bitcoin, everything. Yeah. Some of them down 80, 90%. The reason that occurred, in my opinion, is everybody in the institutional and sovereign wealth at that time saw that the Clarity Act, the Stability Act that made the first act, which was the Genius Act, the second part was going to come and make Bitcoin legal for them to own in an index. It didn't happen. So they were doing a lot of analysis. This is quite shocking. It turns out, if you actually do the analysis, and they did, these institutions did, they basically went in, eyes open, saying, let's run the numbers. What do I need to own in crypto to capture 90% of the alpha, the volatility? Turns out all you need is Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the rest of the poo-poo coins are worthless.
Yeah.
So they dropped 80, 90%. They never came back. Bitcoin got slaughtered because of a lot of deleveraging. Remember, we had all these treasury products that came out that had leverage on them. I'm still long this, but there's a new concern that is kind of floating around for 10% of the people out there. Quantum. The idea that a quantum computer can break the chain.
Interesting.
And so until that gets resolved, there'll be some resistance at the institutional level to go past 3%.
Well, we got to address the elephant in the room, and that's not quantum computing, guys. That's that Kevin O'Leary said that everything outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum is a poo-poo coin. Now, even if we look at Kevin O'Leary's portfolio, he owns the token HBAR. He owns the token Solana. So again, this is one of those ideas where he's saying one thing and he's doing another. My belief is that Kevin O'Leary understands even better than myself, or even better than the thousands of people out there listening, that this digital asset class is in the process of evolving. And Bitcoin has had its day as the #1 digital asset. But as this market becomes about tokenized assets and it becomes about the adoption of stablecoins, the underlying ledger is going to be the most profitable aspect of this whole narrative. If everybody starts minting stablecoins on the XRP ledger, guys, that is going to bring not billions, but trillions of dollars worth of demand in the long run. And I think Kevin O'Leary can look at this market fairly objectively and says that's providing a massive opportunity for people like ourselves to make a whole lot of money, right? And it can't be done on Bitcoin. So even in that just very brief, subtle analysis, we can tell that not everything outside of Bitcoin is a poo-poo coin, as Kevin O'Leary calls it. The last thing I would say in regards to this is even if you look at the price action of the broader crypto space, yes, Bitcoin is down fairly significantly, about 50% from the top, but it's the altcoins outside of Bitcoin and XRP that have really been demolished, like Solana at $82, Cardano at 28 cents, Chainlink at sub $9, or AVAX, which is trading below $10 as we record this episode. These are the altcoins that have been demolished, but XRP in and of itself has held up very well against the rest of the market. And that's why I'm keeping an eye on that XRP decoupling that we've been talking about for a really long time. Bitcoin moving down and sideways, maybe even slightly up, while XRP is seeing massive progress. That would happen from the onboarding of these financial institutions that we started off the beginning of the episode with, companies minting stablecoins, using smart contracts in Ripple's ecosystem, and naturally migrating that liquidity onto the XRP ledger. That would be a complete game changer. Now, I am thinking that the live chat is broken, guys. So if you could, my StreamYard is not showing me any updated submissions in the live chat. If you could, throw a 1 in the live chat to help out the program. Throw a 2 in the live chat, doesn't matter. I just want to see if I can read the comments as they're actively rolling in, because on my personal StreamYard, we're not getting those updates. But while that's coming in, I'm going to play one more update for you guys out of this Paul Barron podcast, talking about utility tokens and what comes next. Here it is.
Versus if you get into DATs that go into utility, that gets different because now it starts to play into a completely different angle for this. When you guys frame this right now and you look at the major tokens and projects and companies, Ripple stands kind of on the top of the heap right now. Is there anybody else that you think might be aligned with this next generation of finance?
Would you like to go, Vindal?
Yeah, HBAR, Hedera Hashgraph.
Yeah.
Such a superior technology for tokenization and really disruptive technology. So even though the price isn't doing anything right now, the crypto assets are just, pretty much depressed across the board, including HBAR. At the end of the day, if you really look at not just their governing council and what kind of powers are sitting behind them at the table, but really what they're building out. Okay, that's the key there. Because when you invest in these technologies and try to identify opportunities that aren't being reflected yet in the price, you have to ask yourself, okay, what is the superiority of their technology and how relevant is it going to be in the future based on the direction the world is heading in, and how will that future look, 12 to 24 months from now or a few years from now? And if you can see beyond the curve and look forward, have that forward thinking and vision, you'll be able to see that some of these technologies are way ahead of their time and already building something for that new world that's coming. a tokenized world where everything is pretty much digitized. All forms of value is tokenized. Now we're on that path already.
Yeah.
And HBAR, Hedera Hashgraph, is one of the entities that I think is going to play a critical role in the new system, along with Stellar, the Stellar network, and the XRP ledger. And there are others as well. But just
it's
to
like this
point out
one, this era of utility tokens, and I should just say projects, align very similar with the old world value of gold, which is the ultimate in utility, you know, when you look at it. So if you have digital utility over here for rails, you have the ultimate utility over here from the old world, which is physical gold, and the demand that continues to push onto it. It begs the question to you guys, is the price of gold right now, Fort Knox.
And we'll pause this, guys, because I think you made the very clear point that a lot of these technologies are ahead of their time. And it's not just HBAR, it's XRP, it's Ondo, it could be the Canton network. I think there's tons of opportunities across the crypto space. Now, I did want to let our listeners know the live chat comment section on StreamYard is not working today for some reason, so I can't read the active comments. I'll have the YouTube open next door. But Johnny Krypto, first of all, how are you feeling this morning? And thank you for being here.
Abs, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here, as always. Appreciate it. And, I'm just excited about continuing to move on as we move on now to the 55. Here we go, baby.
Absolutely.
It's a whole new day, my friend. It's a whole new day.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting, Johnny, is that a lot of people, maybe they showed up for the birthday wishes, maybe they showed up for the crypto content, but 55 is a magical number. And I think it's going to be a magical year for my boy, Johnny Krypto. Now, on a much more serious note, the big topic that we broke down for today's episode, Johnny, 300 banking partners from Ripple can now tap directly into the XRP ledger. And what happened here? The permission DEX went live. So institutions now have a verifiable credential that they're able to use on the XRP ledger in order to get access to the permission DEX. What does this mean? Everything on the XRP ledger can be leveraged going forward. Smart contracts, stablecoins, tokenized assets, all the biggest players on the planet can now tap directly into the XRP ledger. And I showed our listeners a video of David Schwartz, which is talking about exactly that, which is if you look at what's happening on the XRP ledger today, it's all about developing for the future. Even here in 2026, it's not about the utility that kicks on in April or May or June, something like that. It's about the slow development of blockchain products and how they're working their way into the TradFi market with this new amendment going live. And you guys are reading that correct. 300 banks can now use the XRP ledger. Big institutions, the big money pools, the large liquidity providers all have a permissioned and verifiable way to leverage the XRP ledger. So why is that good for XRP investors? They need the XRP token. Even if they're just sending that money for a fraction of a second, they're going to sit on large reserves in order to tap into that liquidity going forward. That means that companies that we've heard rumors of, like Standard Chartered, Santander, SBI, all of those huge companies who we think maybe they have billions of XRP behind the scenes, well, now they can start using that XRP and actually tapping into the XRP ledger capabilities. We did just pass over 400 likes on today's program. If you're excited, you enjoy this content, or you're just excited about the 300 banks being able to tap in, smash that like button to help pass our goal. We're going to set the goal for 589. It was 700. We're going to reduce it to 589 because the live chat is broken and I'm not sure what's going on out there. But Johnny, what's your reaction, the major update today, and what that means for XRP holders?
Well, the way I look at it, Abs, this would be a really good first test indicator. Now that we can have institutions playing in this space, to me, that's the first thing I'd be looking at is, okay, how do these guys engage with it? How much engagement are we seeing? How much interest is there in it? And again, it's new, so I don't expect like all 300 banks. Like, I wouldn't be upset if all 300 banks didn't work with them tomorrow. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work that way. There may be 5 or 6, a handful of them that start dabbling and start playing around. And that's what you want to see. Because I know everybody's like, oh, how come all 300 banks aren't using them? Why isn't the price going up? The price ain't going to go up, guys. This is like kind of let this thing develop. Let these guys get familiar with the technologies that are out there as the world evolves. And then over time, Abs, we'll start to see, the fruits of the labor will come later. The seeds are being planted right now, but the real growth and adoption comes much, much later after these guys get to play with it, get to understand it, and then start figuring out, oh, this is how we can leverage this. Oh, you mean I could do this and to do that, blah, blah, blah. And so it's just going to be a slow growing thing. But to me, it's the start. And that's what we want to see now is how does this thing get started? How much interest is there in the long run? And then what kind of impact does it have? I'm not expecting a big impact on the XRP price itself for this. maybe more on the usage of the ledger, but not so much the price of the coin right now. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Is I just want to see more transactions occurring, and to me, that's a good sign. Because at the end of the day, Abs, I've always felt that the value of these cryptocurrencies are really going to get somehow tied back to the actual underlying blockchains or ledgers that they run on, and that's what I want to see. Is you want to see more value being added on chain.
I agree. And for anybody out there who's like, I still don't understand what they're even talking about. Like, what is this permission DEX? Why does it matter? Well, the permission DEX is trading tokenized stocks, bonds, treasuries, stablecoins in a fully compliant way, fully on the XRP ledger. So that means firms that are tokenizing assets on XRP, like Archax is a good example of this, or even somebody like BlackRock or Franklin Templeton who owns the XRP token, they can now start using this blockchain technology starting at 4 p.m. today. So prior to today, they could not use this tech. The use cases just simply weren't there. The technology simply wasn't there to be tapped into. After this amendment goes live, those new use cases also go live. Pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, asset managers, they could all start using the XRP ledger to improve their existing business model. And it's not about making people like us wealthy. It's about making these companies more money, right? They don't care about the value of XRP in the sense that we do. They just care about making money for their own business. And that's why they're going to use the XRP ledger, because using the XRP ledger and these prime brokerage services, they can improve their business model and give themselves a competitive edge over anybody who's not using blockchain products. So forget about the idea that anybody even wants the XRP price to increase. That will happen because of the use cases. Not the price won't increase because they want it to. The price will increase because it's necessary in the way that this model is structured. Quick comments there, Johnny, and we'll dive right into the next.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's really what it is. At the end of the day, it's looking at the price restructuring based on the volume. And we talked about that in the past. And I think that's really one of the things we want to also see. And I think that's what people need to understand is like, this will allow more access to the blockchain, more ability for people to play and try it and see what they feel and how this whole thing is going to come together. So yeah, I'm really, really excited that again, you're starting to see the tracks and you're starting to see the things move in the right direction. And this is what we want. And you know what? We don't even have full clarity yet, Abs. There's no clarity. We don't have a clarity yet. This thing could end, you get a new president. This thing could end tomorrow and it gets all crushed down. But yet I like the fact that we're still seeing the progress of the technology moving forward. And I think a lot of that is because they see the current administration, they see the support that they're having, and they're kind of leaping, taking a little step forward. But not every company is going to do that. So I'm not, especially banks, like they're the slowest to move and react. So for me, it'll be very interesting to see how many kind of lean forward and start taking advantage of the permission DEX that's out there and other things. And then, we'll see how it grows from there. But I think the real big winner is going to be once we get the Clarity Act. That is when you might start seeing, not initially, but after several months, you'll start to see serious activity. And then eventually, like I said, the investors, the retailers, Abs, they're going to be the last to come in. They always are. Not all our chat, right? Everybody here, we already know. But the people who aren't here yet, those guys are all going to come in much later, and that's where we're going to get excited because we're going to have a lot of that for the price appreciation over time.
Well, something that got a lot of attention this morning on Twitter, Johnny, was this chart that was put out by Krypto Rover. And he said, hey, Gronk, be honest, where are we in this cycle right now? Well, Gronk predicted that we're actually in this anxiety/denial phase, which means a lot of people think the bear market's over, and it's not over. But again, that's just what Gronk's analysis is. My analysis is something a little bit different, right? I find myself leaning into the category that a bear market is when prices are going down. And I think the majority of these prices going down is in the rearview mirror, right? That's my honest perception of kind of where we are today. But you discussed the Clarity Act. I have a video that our listeners are going to really appreciate. We are almost at that 30-minute mark. If you're enjoying some content, smash that like button. Help us pass that 589 mark. And we did just pass 500. Shout out to you guys for being literally the best community in the crypto space. Nobody else even comes close. Let's play this brand new video and then we'll break it down.
Ever since I fell down the crypto rabbit hole at the end of the last financial crisis, I've always looked at crypto as a better architecture of finance. And I still look at it that way today. Of course, it's an awesome new alternative asset class. But far more important, I believe, is its role to underpin the new financial system. It's a digital network architecture of finance. It's in all of our interests that we have the type of national legislation that we had back in the 1990s, the Telecommunications Act, that unleashed the first wave of the internet. It gave it a sound legislative and legal underpinning. I think we all need a sound legal underpinning so that whoever is elected in the next presidential election can't, at a whim, as it was done in the last, become hostile to this innovation. If we put the American economy on a digital network architecture, we're going to win the next century. We've got to have that legislation, I believe.
It's really awesome. Johnny, I know you have thoughts. Floor is yours.
I mean, I can't say it more, but I literally been saying the same exact thing for a year now. And it's just music to my ears that you get the pros, or the guys who are in this space who understand it. And for him to reference back exactly, you know, what we've been saying on this show, Abs, is the Clarity Act is going to be no different than the Telecom Act was to unlock everything. He gets it, right? And that's the whole point of it, is if you want America to move forward, if we wanted the internet, you and I would not be talking right now live if we didn't have that Telecom Act in 1996 and all the money that was made and all the, I mean, you might not remember this because you were running around in diapers, but back then everybody was talking about how there were internet millionaires born because people were becoming millionaires and multimillionaires literally within weeks because of the things were booming for those 3 years for that run. And I remember it was so exciting. And it's reassuring for me, or actually feels great to hear experts like that talk about it and say they feel the same thing is coming once we get the Clarity Act. I couldn't agree more. I think really that is it. And that's why people have to place their bets now. You don't want to wait until afterwards because you don't know exactly when it's going to happen. It took like 6 or 9 months after we got the Telecom Act before we actually saw the massive bull run in 97, 98, and 99 for the internet stuff. So again, and I don't know if it's going to be exactly the same one. I don't even know what Bitcoin comment I made last night. But anyway, linchpin, I don't know what the hell I said. But to me, just very, very reassuring that we are on the right track. We're playing this game the right way. We're getting involved before we place the bet. Exactly. And I say this all the time. We are so early that I know it feels like you're late. I get it, folks. You've been through 2 or 3 different bull runs. You've seen it go up. You've seen it go down. You might have taken profits. You might not have. And you're sitting there getting frustrated. But what you got to understand at the end of the day is you just have to be patient. And the way to do that is don't invest money that you can't afford to lose. Because if you can do that, then you're going to be like, okay, great. I'll just wait for this train to leave the station. And, you know, to me, once we get the Clarity Act, that's when the train leaves the station. Now, when we get the pump apps, I don't know. But to me, that's the key linchpin that I'm looking for. And I hope we get it. You know, we've heard March, we've heard April, we've heard May. So sometime within this quarter, we get it. And if we do, I think we start to see the beginning. So I think you have to throw away the whole concept of bear and bull runs and bear cycles and bull cycles the way we're used to them. You know, 90% pullbacks. I agree with you that I think where we are now, we're pretty close to the bottom. Do we have another 10% to go down? Sure, maybe. Do I care? No, hell no. I don't give a shit. I could care less if we go down another 10% because I think we have thousands % to go up versus the downside risk.
I think you're spot on, Johnny. And I think a lot of people in the retail market think we're going lower, which means we're probably not going that much lower, right?
Right.
Because retail often gets it wrong. Like when retail flips bearish, that's when our listeners should be bullish. When retail is bullish, that's when our listeners should probably flip to that bearish sentiment, maybe even take a little bit of profit here in the crypto space. But guys, we got almost 1,800 live listeners. If you're enjoying this content, we're only 30 likes away from passing that 589. Smash that like button. Let's listen to some thoughts about Raul Paul and how he thinks this market cycle is going to be completely different.
This is just a correction in an ongoing bull market. And that's counter to the narrative, which is there's this 4-year cycle that was handed from Satoshi and it exists in perpetuity. I don't think that's the case. So I think on a number of factors, on the macro level, it's all driven by liquidity. In the work that we've done has said that liquidity explains 90% of the price action of Bitcoin. And global liquidity going into 2026, purposely orchestrated by the Trump administration, is all about printing of money in various guises, plus a big fiscal stimulus. So we've got that happening. We've got the Clarity Act coming through. Sentiment is super washed out. I mean, unbelievably, miserably, disgustingly washed out, which people now think the cycle must be over. We can't have nice things. But almost nothing went to new highs. Bitcoin did, BNB did. That was about it.
It came very, very
It
close.
came close and then close but no cigar.
Yeah.
But really, how can it be a bull market when nothing's gone to new highs? And my view on that, it's been driven by an extension of the debt cycle out by another year. So most of the debt refinancing, which drives liquidity, happens in 2026. So also
there you have it, guys. So again, I love his ideology there, which is that it's not going to be this copy and paste 4-year cycle blueprint going forward. This is a completely different ball game. And lucky for us, hopefully the people in our community understand the ones who will win this ball game in the end are the ones who have the patience to wait until the 9th inning. And I think we're still in probably inning number 1 or inning number 2. Johnny, I like the analogy that you've used before where you said, it's like somebody's throwing a party on Friday and you show up Monday night and go, nobody's here. There's no party. Where's the party, right? That's kind of what it's like in the crypto space. We're sitting there on Monday night here as XRP investors, and we're like, where's the utility? Where's the regulation? It's coming, but it's about 4 days away, right? Get patient, be patient. The party's on the horizon, my friends. And hopefully we can all be here to celebrate that process of growth when it inevitably occurs.
And that's just pretty funny because I don't like being early for anything. As you know, I'm usually the late guy. The party starts on Friday. I show up Saturday, right? So that's how we're. But this party, you want to be early at. This is the only party I'm early to, Abs. I probably won't be early for anything else. Shit, I was even late for my own birthday party on Sunday. So the reality is, this is one of those things where you actually want to be early to, only because the consequence and the price you pay, no pun intended, is dramatically higher if you miss being early. And so in this case, it's better off being early. It's better off being thank you, buddy. I really appreciate it. I don't know if that's an insult or a comment. I'm not even trying to take that one. But at the end of the day, it's better off to be early than late in this particular one. And even if the consequences is going to go down another 10 or 20%, like who cares? You know, the reality is if you get to the party early, but you know it's going to be a good party, who cares if you're a few minutes early, right? And it's the same thing with this. If you're going to lose a little bit more, and yeah, maybe you don't buy completely at the bottom. First of all, you shouldn't even be trying to buy the bottom because you don't know where the bottom is. I don't know where the bottom is. Nobody knows where the bottom is. Stop trying to get the bottom. That's problem number 1. If you stop trying to get the bottom and you just DCA on the way down, you'll eventually get close to the bottom. And the rule of thumb that I always heard all my years, you know, and I'm not a professional trader, right? But I used to have friends that were, and they used to say to me, Johnny, successful traders are very happy if they catch 80% towards the bottom and sell 80% towards the top. So that's it. They never tried to catch a top because they knew they couldn't either. And they live in this space. They just knew they had to catch within that 20% down to the bottom. And the only way to get there, you got to stair step. You got to DCA. It's the only way to do it.
Right. And we also talk about this, guys. If you want to set yourself up for success, leverage ITrust and take advantage of those tax-free crypto gains through a Roth IRA product. You can click on the link below. You get a $100 free sign-up bonus for clicking our link. But I think the whole idea behind that, the reason that I even talk about it is because if XRP is $1.50 and you think it's going to $10, why not pay those taxes up front at $1.50 on that initial deposit, and that $8.50 gain on each token, that is compounding tax-free in your Roth IRA. So check it out, guys. Click on the link below. If you don't know about this stuff, give it a quick Google. Check out what the Roth really is, because why would guys like Johnny and myself be using this? To make money. That's what it's all about. And that's just the truth. And I say it in a funny way because it's true. It's like, we wouldn't talk about this product if it wasn't helping us make money, right, Johnny Krypto?
Well, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, you always say it. I ain't going to steal your line, but it's not what you make. It's what you keep. And at the end of the day, with a Roth IRA, I mean, it's the best gift since sliced bread, right? At the end of the day, you want to be able to not pay taxes or keep as much as you make ever. And the only way to do that, there's only one tool in the world that they've given us, and it's a Roth IRA. That's what the IRS, that's what Congress has passed. And the only way to do it is to have one of those set up. You got to have it for 5 years. You got to be over 59 and a half. But here's the best part. In the past, you couldn't buy crypto in a Roth, and now you can through ITrust Capital. So I can get the best of both worlds, Abs. I get to buy crypto. I get to buy it in my Roth IRA. And the best part is I know this stuff's going to skyrocket someday. We're early. We just talked about it for 10 minutes, how we're so early. So if my portfolio is going to 10, 20x, do I want it to 10 or 20x in my Kraken or Coinbase account? Sorry, guys. I like you guys. I like Kraken and Coinbase, but I don't. I wanted to do it in my iTrust Capital account because that's where I'm going to make a shit ton of money, and I get to keep it all. So that's why I'm gung-ho. And actually, that's why Ab's not even partnering with these guys, because it's not because they're paying us. I mean, they are, but we have to disclose that. But the point is, it's because we like the fucking product. It's so freaking good that you got to click the link below, sign up if you haven't, and get yourself set up so you can keep your profits and not have to give them to Uncle Sam.
Absolutely. And think about this, Johnny, kind of tying it back to the conversation we were having. Paul Barron put this out, an unpopular opinion. Bitcoin is no longer the asset that we thought it was. In 2024 and 2025, we saw record institutional buying. Shout out to IBIT and Strategy, which is Bitcoin, which is BlackRock and Michael Saylor. Yet the euphoria of previous cycles is still missing. What's the math here? Institutions bought billions, long-term holders, they sold at record rates, and the price has stayed compressed. We're seeing a massive turnover of the guard. Bitcoin is now a mature macro asset, leading the risk sentiment. So don't expect the easy mode gains of 2027 or 2021. More liquidity, more complexity, less reflexive. That may as well say less volatility. Welcome to the new market structure. And Johnny, that's what we just talked about from the standpoint of it's not going to be this copy and paste. Everybody gets to get rich every 4 years going forward. They're going to make this game more complicated as we go. And it's clear to me that what they're doing here is they're evolving from this digital niche, maybe digital gold asset class into a real asset class that's synonymous with banking. It's synonymous with BlackRock. It's synonymous with Fidelity. That's why I think our listeners are going to get rich, point blank, and saying it how it is. After the Clarity Act, look at this. And I don't know if I deleted it in my prep, but I showed you guys the update last week where Santander came out and they said, we believe XRP can be $28 by the year 2028 or 2029. To XRP community members who have these massive expectations, they're like, it's going to be 280. It's going to be, if we even get to $28, guys, you're going to make a ton of money. That's the math behind the equation, right? Your $1.50 asset that you own now, if you even own, let's say you own 1,000 XRP, that's $1,500. If we go to $28, you're now going to be sitting on $28,000. Extrapolate that. That 10,000 XRP would be $280,000, right? This is the type of gains that I think we should really embody and that we should really stay focused on. Because if you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you're not going to get scared out, right? That's why I'm so prominent about the idea of remaining optimistic for poor people like myself, right? I'm a poor person just like you guys. I want to be wealthy. I'd love to be like Kevin O'Leary, flying on private jets, being a philanthropist. But the reality is I got to work 2 jobs every day just to get my mortgage paid, Johnny. So the truth of the matter is we're right alongside the people who watch this program where we're putting our money where our mouth is. We see the opportunity. We're willing to be patient. And guess what? If we're right, we get to do something generations live and die and don't get to accomplish. We were born into the middle class and we'll go out in the upper class, or we'll go out as multimillionaires, 1%ers, whatever that goal is for our listeners. And that's why it's important to be in crypto. That's why this is the modern day real estate market. In my opinion, this is like the baby boomers buying a prime home for 10 grand, waking up a few decades later and it's a $2.4 million home. This is the same idea with digital assets. If we're right about XRP, Johnny, we're buying $1 asset, $1.50 asset. We wake up a couple decades later, even though people don't want to wait that long. So let's minimize the example to 5 years. And all of a sudden it's $20, it's $25, $30. That is the opportunity that we're here for. So that's why I'm going to be here every single day, providing updates alongside you guys, going nowhere, bull market or bear market, because we need this. We need this light at the end of the tunnel. And we need to be proven with our vision that clarity is coming. Banks are going to show up. Companies are integrating blockchains, and we're the early adopters. Floor is yours. Any comments there, Johnny?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I can't disagree with Paul at all. I'm in the same boat here. I feel the same thing, that the massive 4-year bull runs could be over, at least for Bitcoin for sure. No question about it. I think Bitcoin's only hope for appreciation over time is going to be the idea of an adoption as a strategic reserve by governments. And I think if that happens, you're going to see a massive leg up on it over time. Growth. You could probably look at a gold chart and get a similar kind of concept, because that's what's going to happen to the same form all the way to $1 million or $2 million. So to me, Bitcoin has left the building. All right, kind of like Elvis. Bitcoin's left the building. It's kind of out there, and it's its own different beast now, and it's being looked at different. It's being viewed differently. It's been adopted by Wall Street. It's no longer in control of VCs only. The big boys, like you said, a lot of the old hands, all the old hands that were in low prices, all getting out, which means now the reason why that's significant is we're resetting a new floor, a new base for Bitcoin around this 50 to 60,000, right? Whereas don't forget, there were hundreds and thousands of people that were in at $10 or $100 or $200. They're all getting out now. And that's a good thing, because it's going to help stabilize the base, right, for this thing around that $50, $60 price. And that becomes the launch pad for the next leg up over time as this thing, if it becomes adopted there. But that's Bitcoin. Then when you look at the rest of the asset class, I feel a little different about that. I think with altcoins, I don't think altcoins are there yet. I don't think they're where Bitcoin is. I don't think they're fully matured. I don't think they've been fully adopted by Wall Street. I don't think they're fully developed. I think they have use case potentials that can change the valuations of each one of them. And we don't know what those are yet. With Bitcoin, it's pretty obvious. It's going to be, strategic. It's going to be digital gold, right? It's going to be that kind of asset value. But for the other ones, they all have different use cases and serve different purposes, and they can play different places. Kind of like what Brad said, right? At the end of the day, when you look at internet companies back in when we had the booms happening in 97, 98, every single company was considered an internet company. Amazon was an internet company, and Google was an internet company, but they're completely different because they weren't internet companies. Amazon was e-commerce. Google was search, right? They're completely different, but they were born during that umbrella. The same thing's going to happen here with these digital assets. We're calling them digital assets, right? But XRP isn't Ethereum. And they're very, very different in what they do and how they operate and how they work together. And so to me, that's one of the things that I think is really, really important is people understanding that we still, I think, have some growth potential left, massive growth potential in the altcoin side of this digital asset category.
I completely agree, Johnny. We just got a brand new update right now as you were talking from Coinbase CEO and a United States Senator that said the Clarity Act is hopefully coming by April. Now, I want to remind people as well, Brad Garlinghouse came out and said 80% chance from his perception that Clarity is signed into law by the end of April. One's in chat if you agree, two's in chat if you disagree. We are in overtime for today's episode. So if you're enjoying this overtime, smash that like button. Help us pass that 700 like goal that we originally set because you guys are amazing. We blew 589 out of the water. Johnny, here's the latest update, and then we'll keep this going.
What is the status of the market structure regulation that you famously blocked from passing a few weeks ago?
Yeah, well, we're here meeting with crypto companies, bank representatives, and senators as well to see if we can get to a solution on market structure. And one of the big issues that did come up in the past was this idea of stablecoins on rewards. I wouldn't say we blocked it. In fact, nobody, I think, in the crypto space has been working harder on this over the last few years to try to get some legislation. What we did say was the current draft, we had some issues with it. I think that caused everyone to come back to the table. And there's now a path forward where we can get a win-win-win outcome here. A win for the crypto industry, a win for the banks, and a win for the American consumer to get President Trump's crypto agenda through to the finish line so we can make America the crypto capital of the world.
Were you surprised? What was your reaction when he after he's obviously been so involved in this and was so deep on it and then came out against the version of the bill? How did you react to that?
Well, look, I had concerns about the bill, still have some concerns about the bill. We weren't done. We got hung up on the issue of rewards on stablecoins, which is really, in my mind, really shouldn't be part of this equation.
Wait, can we just explain this? Like why people should care about this? What the whole yields rewards on stablecoins thing is about?
Well, unless you own a bank, you probably shouldn't care. Because if you're an American consumer, what it means is that the cash that you hold, you're going to have competition to pay you more interest. So you're going to be able to get more money for the money that you have in your wallet or the money that you have in some sort of account. So this is very, very good for working Americans because ultimately this is about giving Americans more rewards for being able to have cash on reserve, be able to get paid quicker, be able to transact faster, democratize the financial systems. But we're going to get this bill across the finish line. But I would say
when?
Hopefully by April. Hopefully.
There you have it, guys. Hopefully by April. But you know what I thought is so great about that speech, and that's the first time we saw it as well, is that he's only talking about how it impacts existing businesses. He's not like, oh, we need this passed so that Coinbase can reach all-time highs. No, he's saying all of these markets are going to be impacted, and if we don't set rules of the road, it's going to be chaos, right? Imagine they open up a brand new highway and they don't decide, they don't tell you what's the passing lane, what's the speed limit, which direction you're supposed to drive. That's kind of where we're at right now, where it's like, we're looking at the market. Everything's been outlined. We just need the rules of the road and the cars can start taking off. I do want to give a big thank you. $5 donation here from Losco Glass. He said, every step equals progress. Laws are slow to move, especially something with this innovative. Patience truly is a virtue here. Thank you for the good work, guys. We appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the $5 donation. And like I said yesterday, all of your donations went to Johnny Krypto for his birthday celebration, his birthday bash. So hopefully he's going to invite us to that Chuck E. Cheese birthday party, my friends. But we got nearly 2,000 live listeners here. If you enjoyed today's content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, I'm going to be traveling to Denver today. I'll be doing a live stream from Denver tomorrow. And also for our members, become a member. You're going to get some behind the scenes access from the event that I'm attending, maybe some private conversations that I'll be able to record as well. So we love you guys. We appreciate you all. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you all in the next one. So if you're looking to implement the same strategies that we do here on Good Evening Crypto, I would encourage all of our listeners to click on the Merlin link below and sign up for ITrust Capital as well. Now, why are our listeners going to do this? By leveraging the Merlin application, you can create a profit plan for yourself so you know exactly where you're going to be exiting this market. But leveraging ITrust through a Roth IRA product, you can take advantage of tax-free crypto gains during this crypto bull market. So I would encourage everybody, click on the link down below, sign up for ITrust today, and take advantage of our $100 free sign-up bonus.